Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Bader Show. This is episode 448. I'm your host, Mark Bader. And, for about 5 years, we've been doing the show, and it's a guest-based show. We're going to do things a little differently today. No guest, but I want to take this opportunity to give kind of an update and maybe perspective on Ben Askren, what's been going on, where he's at, where he's headed. And so, I've known Ben for a long time. I was a junior in college when he was getting recruited to Missouri. I think I hosted him. We kind of hit it off and became friends, and I've been friends ever since. Really close friends. So Friday, May 30th, Ben was in Nevada, was in Las Vegas. He went to the hospital and was put on a breathing tube. Saturday, I got a message from my friend Rye, R-Y, Rye. Rye had been out in Vegas with Ben. Rye flew home. And as soon as he got home, he got a message from Amy, Ben's wife, that, hey, things went south. We're in the hospital. Ben's on a ventilator. Rye turned around and flew back to Colorado and texted me on Saturday and said, hey, thought you should know, Ben's on life support. And my jaw about dropped. What? Called him. What's going on? He told me through the situation. Hey, they think he got a staph infection, and it's not good. He's having trouble breathing, and his lungs are compromised. And he explained to me that he was in Vegas, flew home, and immediately turned around and flew back. And I was like, that's really serious. And this was Saturday, I guess the 31st. And I'm like, well, if Rye was that serious, he got a new flight and went back out there. And he mentioned at that time, I guess when I talked to him on the 31st, maybe the day before, they weren't sure if he was going to make it or not. So I thought, shoot. And we're all really close. I had my kids that weekend, and I have them till 6 p.m. on Sunday. So I dropped them off at their mom's house, and I drove straight to the airport and caught a 7:30 flight to Las Vegas. En route on that, I think it was June 1st, Sunday, as I'm en route to Vegas, I get a message that, hey, good news, they're going to take the tube out tomorrow on Monday. I thought, awesome. And then I was like, maybe I overreacted. Maybe I actually didn't need to go out there, but okay, I guess I'll go out there and see him for a day or something and then come back. And then when I showed up, the news had changed, and it was like, actually, the tube's not coming out tomorrow on Monday. But so we're there to see him, so we go to the hospital, and we're visiting with him. And actually that Monday, June 1st, he was, and it's tough, seeing somebody you love intubated. I saw my dad like that 13 months prior. Thank God he's okay to this day. But when you walk in there and see a loved one hooked up to the machine that's breathing for him, it's tough, But he was actually kind of could wake up that day. And what I learned so much throughout this whole process. But, he's got 100 machines hooked up to him, next to him, and they got different drugs, and they're monitoring things and whatever, and they're trying to find the right combination of drugs and ventilator to wean him off the sedation so he can wake up, but keep him, I guess, sedated enough with another drug that he'll be calm, because you got a tube down your throat, and they tie your hands to the bed because they know as soon as you wake up, you're going to try to grab it. And it almost looks like torture, right? This person's trying to but he would come to. He could open his eyes. I held his hand. His hands were swollen. His body was surely swollen. But he grabbed my hand, and I could look at him, and his wife's there, and she could talk to him, and he could. And this happened 2 or 3 at least times. He'd kind of wake up and maybe look around, be confused or scared, and hey, Ben, look. We're in a hospital, your lungs, and you just kind of explain to them what's going on. You're on a tube. You need to, I know you don't like this. I know you want the tube out. This is what we have to do. I'm sorry. He was even and my dad did the same thing. Like get this tube out of me. And he can't make noise, right? But he said, take it out now, right? He just got a tube down your throat. We're like, man, we're sorry. This is what you need to do. I'm sorry, you know. But he was, and actually at one point, I'm holding his hand, and he woke up, and he squeezed my hand, and he says, he's trying to tell you to take this thing out. I'm like, I can't. And he grabbed my hand, and he squeezed it, and he's so damn strong, even under those conditions, like, I couldn't get my hand away. I was like, yeah, this is terrible, but he's awake and alert, and he'd go back to sleep and wake up, and this happened a few times, and I was like, one time, like, hey, this is Bader, do you know who I am? And he like, looked like, yeah, of course I know who you are. So like, he was with it and able to wake up on occasions, but when he would wake up, he'd get agitated, obviously, because he's got this tube in him and he wants it out and it gets him so worked up, and getting him worked up wasn't good. So they'd turn the sedation up so he would calm down and go back to sleep. And then a little later on Monday, I think at one point the physical therapist even wanted to come in and try to stand him up. Maybe they did. It didn't work. A little early for that, but we're in there still on Monday, and all this, and these things are beeping, and doctors are coming in and out the whole time, and then the thing starts beeping, and more doctors show up, and I come to learn its oxygen levels dropped. And that's kind of a scary scene. I didn't know what that meant, but more doctors in the room. He's coughing a good amount. It's hard to watch. They were putting ice on him. And, okay, they got him calmed down. They're like, hey, we're just going to keep the sedation. Like, we're going to turn the sedation up, put him back out, because we can't risk him waking up and getting worked up and this happening again. And at this point, it's like, I think when they first went in, Amy was his wife's under the impression that maybe this is 10 days, 2 weeks here in the hospital. Maybe, I don't know, she stay in Vegas. Kind of haven't really completely told our kids what's going on. We told them Dad's in the hospital, but they didn't need to know everything yet. And then the conversation starts to like, should we try to figure out a flight, right? You can't just go through TSA and get on a flight. This is like all this stuff that's hooked up it's a medical flight, right? It's one flight that comes to get him. And so now the decision is that, I think that's probably what needs to happen. And on top of this, they have some friends who work in these hospitals in Wisconsin in this like exact same unit. Amber and Emily, shout out, I think is who they are. They're fantastic and super helpful. They both kind of at different times came out, and I feel like Tuesday and Wednesday was mostly the same. Not much change. She was mostly sedated. And Thursday, I'm flying back home, right? And we all have lives that we kind of got to live. So, but they got a transport flight for him set up for Thursday, the first week of June, whatever that is. I'm like, great, okay, cool. And I wake up, and they go to the hospital. I go off to the airport or something, and everything's okay. He's going to get home. And then I find out on my way to the airport, hey, there's a setback overnight. They're going to have to cancel the flight and figure something else out. I don't want to get this wrong, but I think maybe his oxygen levels dropped again, and he needed nitrous to be on the flight, and that flight didn't accept nitrous. If I'm getting any of this wrong, I apologize, but this is how I believed it to be. So now I'm on my way back to Texas, and I'm like, holy crap, like we thought we made all this progress, and then it's back to square one, if not, worse than that. It's heavy on your mind, but I get back, and shortly after I'm at my house, I get a text from Amy, and it's the flight crew in Ben's ICU room, right? She's like, they're here, they're picking him up. Holy crap, it's not easy to organize these flights, but they got the one canceled and another one made in a day. So I get him back to Wisconsin on Thursday, June 4th or 5th or something like that. And, Amy made a post saying what happened, and then some time went by, and she made another post and said, hey, sorry, things have been in limbo. And so the kind of the way that things were happening once he was in Wisconsin was he also went on this treatment called ECMO, which I guess they take blood out, put oxygen in it, and put the blood back in. So that's one thing that happened when he got to Wisconsin. But he was just, we're getting updates almost daily, and we'd have friends, gone from Vegas, and then our friend Cody Crocker drove up from Southwest Missouri to be at the hospital with him and stay with Amy and the family. And then he left, and then Jeremy Spates drove up to stay in the hospital and stay with the help with the family. And we still, Kevin Herron and our old heavyweight and his wife are up there now. But there was a couple weeks where, get a little message, hey, he made a little improvement. He was able to maybe open his eyes or nod or blink his eyes or follow commands or squeeze your hand or these little victories. But then it's like every time it was kind of met with a setback. So like you hear a little, and like opening an eye at this point was good news, right? But he'd open his eye. It was like this little mini cycle. You get excited, and then, oh, no. Okay, he's back. No. And so that was tough. But, they got, he slowly since then started to stabilize. They, somewhere in there, they did a tracheotomy, I believe it's called, where, instead of the tube going down his mouth, they cut a little hole somewhere, I don't know exactly, in the windpipe in the neck or throat, and give the ventilator, I believe, through there, which helps a lot because he was so agitated because this thing's down his throat. So that's helpful. And just a little bit of up and down. And so, and what's today, I think what is today? Today's June 24th. So yesterday, June 23rd, I get and there's this text thread with a bunch of friends and old teammates. And Rye gets a message from Amy, and he puts, hey, she said he's awake. He woke up. He asked for coffee and wrestling results, right? And he still can't make noise, but he can mouth it. And it took a while for them to figure out what he's saying, and it sounds like he was, rolled his eyes at something, made a face at something he would make a face at. So like his personality's back a little bit. He's like coming to. And I talked to, again, Kevin, my friend who's up there right now, last night. And he said Ben was awake most of the time he was there. I think Kevin got there in the late afternoon or evening, maybe. So like, and they turned the sedation down, right? When he was out, it was because the sedation kept him out, and he wasn't physically ready to be awake, I guess. But he was awake yesterday, most of the day, or most of the time my friend was there. That's the update I have to give. And so that kind of takes us to where we are now. I mean, we all have heard his lungs. They're damaged. They're bad. And we knew this was coming, but yesterday, his wife Amy, his brother Max, and his mom met with the doctors. And is this absolutely necessary? Do we absolutely need the transplant? Is there a chance we could hold out for a little longer and they start to repair itself? Because what happens, I guess, is the infection got to his lungs and was eating the tissue in his lungs pretty bad, and I guess ate some holes in his lungs. And they basically was like, look, there's a chance we could do this without the transplant, but he would need to be on oxygen and during the day and the ventilator at night. And any of us that know Ben, like, that's not an option, right? His life's going to be different enough as it is post-transplant. No way can that guy be on oxygen all day and ventilator at night. So it was made the decision either last night or this morning for sure. He needs a transplant. As of last night or this morning, he is officially listed. So he is on the list to get a transplant, and he is way at the top because of how young and healthy he is and the condition he's in right now, which ain't great, right? He's got a ventilator still. He's on this ECMO treatment, which I guess is you don't get on ECMO unless it's pretty severe. And then my thought was like, the way I understood it was like, for there to be a lung, something bad has to happen to somebody else. And then I was like, okay, I guess how long does that take? And you don't know. And I guess the first available. And then I was like, well, at least he'll have clean lungs. And then I thought, who knows what kind of lungs he's going to get? What if a 30-year smoker gets in a car accident and that's what they have for him? Well, I've learned they actually, they have already, I talked to Ben's wife this morning, they have already had offers. I didn't know that's what it's called, but they've already been presented with options. And I don't know any details about the options except that they said no thanks. And Amy said, hey, would you please be very picky and very choosy because, you know, Ben taking care of his body and his lungs better than me, better than most or any of our friends or most of the people I know. He's just, he's never drank. He's never smoked. He's never, done drugs. He's never, treated his body bad like that at all. And so the goal is to get the healthiest lungs that they can get. And the time frame on that, it could be hours, it could be weeks, and I guess that's okay. I'm no doctor. I hope I'm getting most everything I'm telling you as accurate as possible. But he is on the list. He does need and will, I guess, get a double lung transplant. And then here comes, the unfortunate part is like the cost associated with this. And I'm also no insurance agent or anything like that, but the insurance won't cover the lung transplant. And that's extremely costly, astronomical costs associated with that. And so the hospital came to the family and suggested, hey, here's this fund. We suggest you guys start collecting for this fund. It's through a nonprofit. It is, if you make a donation, it's tax deductible. You can write it off. And this money that sits in this fund can only be used for medical expenses, right? If you start a GoFundMe and you raise whatever, you like to think and hope that that money's taken and used for the right thing. But in this case, it will only be, you can only use the money for medical costs. So, I'm asking, I think the wrestling community is asking for anything anybody can do, $1, $10, $100, sky's the limit, obviously, but, the costs are going to be through the roof. And, I don't want people to think that Ben was this fighter who made this money and has blown it, or has just got all this pile of cash sitting there and, what the heck? It's like, man, the money that this guy's made is like tied up, invested back into the sport. It's in his businesses, it's in his building, it's in the former wrestlers he's hiring as he's expanding this academy. And I just think about, just for me personally, and the broader, like the impact, the amount of lives that Ben has impacted is seemingly immeasurable, right? And not just the amount of lives he's impacted, but the amount of impact he's had on all these different lives. I got introduced to FloCast, it was called in the day, and now Flow Sports and FloWrestling. Like, Ben got me this job, or introduced me to Martin and said, hey, I think you should hire my buddy Bader for this. And there's countless examples of that. He's helped other friends of ours start their own wrestling academies, or start businesses and other ventures, or given advice, or help people in certain ways, and not because he wants anything out of it, right? But because he wants to see people succeed and he wants to see them happy. Doesn't want anything in return. But if he's a way he can offer to help, he'll help, and he's got these academies, and damn, they are, the impact he had on the mat was something, right? And he had a totally different style of wrestling, and maybe a system that was revolutionary, or he made it his own, right? So there's that impact, and there's the impact he's had on individuals like me and his friends, and now these kids at these wrestling academies, and even back up, like you go to other wrestlers, like names we know from wrestling or from fighting, like Mark Ellis, who's a national champ at Missouri, Michael Chandler, Tyron Woodley. Today, right, you hear names like Parker Keckheisen, Keegan O'Toole, Mitchell Messenbrink, right? These guys wrestling at the highest level. He's just creating these monsters. And I don't know this, but I would bet if you asked any of them, you say, what the biggest influence or impact Ben had on their lives, I would almost guarantee it's off the mat. It's some other way he gave them advice or pushed them in a direction or encouraged them or whatever it was, right? Like, he's impacted their lives. He's touched them in ways almost nobody else could. He's a selfless guy. He does these mental Mondays. He puts them on Facebook and probably all the social channels where he's just like gives like a story or a synopsis and an example, and it's like these really well thought out, meaningful. It's just like these ways to messages. I think might be the word I'm looking for, and he doesn't want anything from it. It's like free coaching. It's free advice. It's free like. Man, this is a way to approach wrestling, to not make it such a big deal, to not get so nervous, to be excited about it. And I just think it's our turn to give back. I think about it like this. I watched Ben wrestle all through college. And I'd watch him wrestle, and he's wrestling these monster guys, and they club his head and they grab his leg and they got his foot over his head, and he like turn around and dive towards the ground and fall underneath and go between their legs and catch their ankles, and a big mess of wrestling happens, and he comes out on top and it's got the guy twisted like a pretzel and pins him. And then he fought Robbie Lawler, right? And it's his first fight in the UFC. He hits an arm drag. He's on Robbie's back in like what seemed like the first 20 seconds. And then, what happened? Robbie's got him up in the air. And in that split second, I thought, I know what's going to happen here. I've seen this before. Robbie's going to go put him down on the ground. He's going to dive under, catch his legs, grab a thing, and he's going to come out on top. And I thought all that in like the split second. And then that didn't happen, right? Robbie spiked him on his head, punched him in the face 1,000 times, and oh, God. But, like, not only did he get his hands free and recover and stop the damage, like, somehow he, 2 minutes later, he's on Robbie's back, and he's got him in a choke. Like, how did he not only defend this, but overcome? And I feel like Ben got, right, he got thrown on his head again, and he got punched in the face a bunch, and he got, all right, the punching stopped. Now he's trying to figure out a way out of this. And if there's anybody who can figure a way out of this, it's Ben. It's going to be a long road to recovery, and there's no guarantees of what the future is going to look like or how things are going to turn out, or if there's something happens during the transplant. If he has to, it's all successful and he goes home, there's a chance he could be readmitted, right? These are just realities of the situation. So, I want to give a shout out to his wife, Amy. She is an absolute rock. I spent the week with her more or less in Vegas, and we're all upset. But she wasn't a basket case, and we'd leave the hospital and go back to this Airbnb and go out and get dinner, and we just living our lives and trying to tell stories and jokes and laugh and even poke fun at the situation we're in a little bit, toeing the line of inappropriate and going across it, but just among the three of us, and she'd laugh and we'd laugh and have a good time. And she is like grace under pressure, and I love her and I appreciate her, and I just think she deserves a huge shout out for managing the family. I got three young kids, 12 and under, and handling this situation. And a zillion people are texting you for updates, I'm sure. So yeah, Amy's she's a stud. She's awesome. And I guess there's tons more. I'm sure I'm leaving out, but that's the gist, kind of where we're at, how things got to where they are, and what's going on today. So I guess it would be cool if people have a story about Ben, a funny story and an inspiring story, how he impacted you. That would be awesome. If you just made a little quick selfie video and uploaded it, like we'll go, like if you want like hashtag Ben Askren or hashtag Askren stories, maybe, right? So, because a week or two ago, Amy sends out this message and she's like, hey, it'd be cool if you guys could make a video and send it. Give an update on your life, tell an old funny story about Ben, tell a story Ben would want to hear, and I'll play him for him in the hospital. I think this was when he was still mostly sedated. And I get word the other way that, like, hey, she's playing these videos and it's helping. It's helping Ben and it's helping her. And exactly what that means, I don't know, but any way that can help will be cool. So if you have a video, or if you have a story or something you want to share, that'd be awesome, And I would just ask if you're going to do that, I know what Ben doesn't want to hear. He doesn't want to hear 100, videos that are like, we're so sorry. Oh, this is terrible. Oh, man, we're wishing you the best and we're praying. And like, that's all good and well. And it's okay to think that and feel that. It's okay to say that, but I would don't let that tone overtake your entire message, right? Say whatever you got to say about that, but get to the good part. Get to the punchline. Tell the joke. That, because that's what he's going to want to hear, right? Those of you that know Ben, he's a fun-loving guy. He likes to smile. He likes to have fun. If there's a wrestling story, he loves wrestling more than anything, right? Minus people. But the Rudis, I'll give a shout out to Rudis, right? They make wrestling shoes and apparel, and Ben's, I think, been sponsored by Rudis for a long time. They're selling shirts, I think, funky Ben, some kind of shirt supporting Ben, and 100% of the proceeds are being donated, to help with all the medical costs and the transplant. And so shout out to Rudis. We'll put that link in the description. Obviously, we're going to put a link in this description to the fund to donate. I forget what is North Central Hospital or maybe something like that. But for sure, any and all help is appreciated. Ben's he's really like nobody else. The life he created for himself and the life he's helped create for other people, and really asking for nothing. This is a guy who's flip-flop, tank top, shorts, and if he's wearing shoes, right? He's wearing flip-flops. He's not wearing Gucci. Doesn't care about having the coolest clothes or the nicest car or material items. He's people is what he cares about the most. And I don't even think that. I know that. And what I think is he's going to come through this. He's going to funk roll out of it. It's going to be a long, I would imagine, road to recovery. But I do believe Ben will recover. And I don't know what that looks like. I hope we can play disc golf again. I hope he can wrestle, get on the mat and show wrestling moves, right? And I guess no one really knows what the future looks like. But I know what the present looks like, and it's encouraging, but, we still got some road to go. But, it seems like there is a light at the end of the tunnel. It's a long, dark tunnel, but I feel like there is a light. And, that's what's keeping us going, and I think that's what's keeping his wife going and his family. And like I said, we've got friends driving up there to stay with him. There's a list, his wife put out for people to come stay and help out and visit, and we're very appreciative of everybody who's pitched in and is going to pitch in, and thoughts and prayers are always welcome and encouraged. And We want those things, and we're hoping the best for his wife and his family and him. I guess that's it. I could go on and on about more about who Ben is and the impact he's had on me and others, but I think I've said enough to maybe give a little update to the community. I know people are very interested in him, what's going on, and I think it's because how much he's given back and what he means to the wrestling community and the fight community. But he's a wrestler who did a lot of fighting and lives in that world. But you ask him, he'd say he's a wrestler, and he's one of the toughest and most determined, and he's the one guy who can figure shit out like nobody else, and he's going to figure this out. He's going to be better. Hopefully he'll be sitting in this room with us one day talking about this, yeah. I think that's going to do it. If I have anything else to say or something pops up, I can say it in another way. But thanks for tuning in. Hopefully this update clears the air a little bit, gets some insight into what has been going on with Ben and where he's at. And, have questions, I guess, tweet him at me or something. I'll do my best to keep an eye on him. But that's that. Thank you for everything, Ben. You're the man. We all love you, and wishing the best. Go get him. Thanks. Goodbye.